The Bucks are heating up and about to add another all-star back into the fold. Ja Morant says he's done with dunking hard. Do we believe him? Plus, Matt and Hayes will share their wildest NBA rule changes and favorite things of the week. The weekend is nigh. Let's talk ball on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we have Hayes. The Cleveland Cavaliers cruised to victory over the Denver Nuggets 126-114, delivering one of their most well-rounded performances of the season. But was it the most impressive win for the Cavs so far? We're going to start with Hayes. Hayes, what do you think?
No, I think it's still a win over the Boston Celtics. I mean, the Denver Nuggets, make no mistake about it. We've talked about Jokic a lot and what he means to that team, but it's not the most impressive win to me. It was a good win, make no mistake about it, but I just can't call it the most. Honestly, I think that the Cavs have still yet to have, and this isn't a hate on the team, I still think the team is really good. They've yet to have that staple win for me. Like, in just a back and forth like game where they just clearly dominate. Like, they've dominated teams that are much lesser competition, but it's like I'm still waiting on that one win where you look at it and you're like, yeah, this is what defines the Cavs season.
Yeah, for me, it's the win over the Warriors when they beat them by 117-136, and it wasn't that close. Like, they were up 40 in that game. That, to me, is the one, because the Warriors are coming off of beating the Celtics, and they're feeling great. And everyone's talking about the Warriors is like, are the Warriors a contender? And then they go and they're rolling to Cleveland, and Cleveland just destroys them. They got a really great win versus the Knicks in the early season, but this is part of it. If you want the signature win, it can't really come before January. It just can't. Like, nobody's going to take you seriously until January. And then once you start winning in January, February, and March, even though most of the March games are honestly nonsense, that's when people are like, look out, this team. So it's an unfortunate byproduct of the schedule, but you can't really get a signature win, I don't think, before the turn of the new year.
Okay, maybe not a signature win, but a defining win for a Cavs defense that has been trying to continue to establish an identity. Here's Danny Cunningham of Locked On Cavs with more on that.
What the Cavs did so well was defend the three-point line. I've been talking for, it feels like weeks, about that being the weakness of this defense, that they couldn't defend the three-point line, and that had been their Achilles heel, because it had been. Well, on Thursday night, it was the best they've defended the three-point line, I think, all season long. The Cavs did a great job of knowing, okay, when Michael Porter Jr. gets the ball in a catch-and-shoot opportunity, Jamal Murray gets the ball there, we've really got to run those guys off the line. We have to close out really, really hard. The other guys, we're going to be fine with them shooting the basketball from beyond the arc. Denver only took 24 threes against the Cavs on Thursday night. It's tied for their second lowest total of the season. They only made 6 of them. That is an outstanding performance by the Cavaliers defense.
Okay, Matt, you are shaking your head. I got a chuckle there. You cover the Nuggets. What are your thoughts there on Danny's
They average 30 a game, Danny. They don't take them at all. They got no shooters. Like, Calvin Booth, the GM on media day, was like, yeah, we don't have enough shooting. Like, everyone knows. I talked to a source inside the Nuggets last week, and he was like, yeah, no, we don't have enough shooting. We should have gotten more shooting. Like, congratulations on the team that averages the lowest three-point attempts per 100 possessions in the league. But this is the thing. Like, this is where you go wrong, I think, in analyzing some of these games, is if you're like, they did such a phenomenal job at they just controlled this team that is horrible at this thing that they controlled. They did such a great job. No, like, that's not the problem. You need to hold Boston to fewer than 49 threes. Do that. And then we can talk about your great three-point defense.
Still a lot left to prove, but they attacked the weakness and they got the win. Hayes, is there something that makes this team particularly prone to stringing wins together when you look up and down the roster? I mean, obviously they lost back-to-back games to the Atlanta Hawks, But other than that, they've been able to really avoid the slippage that we've seen even from some of the better teams in the league this season.
Yeah, I just think it's the way that everybody gets involved. Like, they are actually getting everybody involved this year, and I think the way that players have stepped up on offense and defense, it just puts them in a position where it's like, whose night is it going to be this night? The your turn, my turn thing, and not in a negative way. Like, they're just so dangerous at being able to throw multiple looks, and somebody always gets hot. And then even then, when they have their moments where maybe their offense staggers a little bit, then you turn Donovan Mitchell loose. So they're just a dangerous team offensively, and they could just hit you from so many different directions.
Yeah, it's a great point by Hayes about they can hit you from so many directions, but he's wrong. It's one direction. Hayes, there's one player that when he plays this season, they're 15-0. Do you know who that is?
That's right. Say it. I know.
It's Dean Wade.
Dean Wade.
15-0. They have not lost a game this season when Dean Wade plays. I need y'all to join me and understand what he does with the bench. He helps the starters. He helps the stagger lineups. Dean Wade, no one understands. I'm a crazy person yelling in the desert. Dean Wade, he's the secret. 15-0 with Dean Wade this season.
The Dean Wade apostle. I like that. Okay, another player that is due to make a big impact for an Eastern Conference team. Matt pulling up his apostle robes here. Yes, you are the monk of Wade. I got it. So let's talk about Khris Middleton. He's set to make his debut for the Milwaukee Bucks tonight against the Boston Celtics. The three-time All-Star had surgery on both of his ankles this offseason. Here's John Corrales of Locked On Celtics with his thoughts on how big of a threat Middleton's return makes Milwaukee.
I don't know what to expect from Khris Middleton, but at 11-10, the Milwaukee Bucks have made up some ground. Yeah. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've made up a ton of ground.
Good.
Yeah, they're okay. So you could say, all right, they figured some stuff out. They're still not where they probably want to be or need to be, and the Celtics are still going to punish the hell out of Damian Lillard defensively. But I feel like this could be one of the most impactful, important returns. He can change the East if he comes back and is any sort of. I see your skepticism. If he is anywhere close to what he used to be.
Okay, so let's just piggyback on that take there from John Corrales. If he gets to 100% and is playing Middleton replacement level basketball, where does that put Milwaukee in your Eastern Conference power rankings, Matt?
I think it's pretty important. Their offense has actually been weirdly the thing that they've struggled with. Like, that's been the weaker point of their team this season. Now they're 12th in offense and defense, schedule adjusted. They've been heading in the right direction on both ends of the floor until that weirdo loss to the Hawks the other night. But I think Middleton, he gives you another wing that can reliably shoot. It means that you don't have to play as many weak spots in the starter minutes. It gives you options to stagger him on that second unit where they've had problems. It'll probably lift up the Bobby Portis minutes a little bit. Like, these are the type of things I think that'll help it. It's lineup construction is that Khris is a plus player. Now, I think Khris is starting to slide pretty considerably because of the injuries. He's just had so many injuries in his career. So I don't know if it's this revolutionary thing for them, but I think it's going to help for sure.
I think it's a big question on, like, what is even 100% Khris Middleton? What is he anymore? Like, you look at his performance in the playoffs, like, yeah, you saw the flashes of that. You look at last year during the regular season, it's like, like Khris Middleton can be something that helps this team go even further in the Eastern Conference and win more games. But he also, I'm not too worried about, like, there may be a little bit of a slide initially kind of integrating him back, if they're trying to throw him out there to do too much right away. It's just that bigger question on who is even 100% Khris Middleton anymore, because I don't know anymore.
All right, we'll see tonight against the Boston Celtics, and make sure you're subscribed to Locked On NBA Game Time on this. If you're subscribed to this feed, you're subscribed to that podcast as well. They're recapping every game every night. All right, coming up, we've got much more ahead, including we're going to play Is This Something? John Morant saying no more hard dunking. We've got Lonzo Ball blaming his equipment, and then later on, we will tell you what our favorite things of the week in basketball. Wrapping up a pretty amazing week in NBA basketball. That's ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. You don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY. on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe and stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. All right, time to play a favorite game here on Locked On NBA. Is this something? After a Grizzlies loss to the Mavs earlier this week, John Morant said, quote, "I'm not trying to dunk at all. Y'all think I'm lying? I'm dead serious. Sometimes I get knocked out of the air and a foul don't get called, and now I'm out longer than what I'm supposed to be," unquote. My question, hot air or no air? Is this declaration by Josh something or nothing, Hayes?
I think it's something. He just got booed the other day for having a regular dunk when it would usually been where he did something spectacular. I'm all for players doing what they need to do to conserve their career. He's on the court. It's not like he's saying, I'm not going to play games or I'm not playing back-to-backs for the rest of my career. If it just comes down to Ja needs to protect himself by laying it up, taking it easier around the rim, as long as he's still scoring the points, that's the most important thing. He's scoring the points. He's staying out on the basketball court. I do think that this is something, and I think it's something that Ja has really spent some time thinking about while he was out so much of last season.
Right idea, wrong approach. So I love the idea of him trying to save himself, because he had so many times in the first two seasons of his career where he would go up for some hyper athletic move and come down on one leg off balance. And every time I would hold my breath waiting for some sort of devastating injury. And you just don't really want to see that. And so it's a good idea for him to save his body, like Hayes said. But this is about, listen to the quote. Sometimes I get knocked out of the air and a foul don't get called. So he's it's petulance. It's the same thing as when he was like, oh, so you're mad that I'm not going to play on back-to-backs. Well, I'll show you, and then play it on the back. I know that Hayes loves the pettiness, but save the pettiness for the opponent and don't save it for this kind of stuff. You don't need to be denying people athleticism if you're in an open situation to dunk it and stuff like that. I understand it. He needs to protect his body. I do think that that's something that he needs to keep in mind. This is one of the challenges, I think, for where the NBA is at athletically, is how do you showcase the athleticism as an entertainer? Because players will talk about that. We are entertainers, while also making sure that you can play for as long as you need to. It's a tough balance, and I don't envy the guys trying to make that decision.
I also wonder if just the allure of the open runway will eventually, it's easy to say this now, it's easy to make these adjustments now in December, but as things tighten up and you have a runway when the lights are bright in the playoffs, just wonder how long that's going to last. All right, let's move on to the Miami Heat, where there was an interesting discussion on Locked On Heat about who their best player is. Let's take a listen to that.
Tyler Herro, who is having a career year, 24 points per game, shooting the snot out of the ball from three-point range.
He's leaned into something that Spo's wanted for a long time, which is you're one of the best shooters in the league. Please shoot more threes and shoot them everywhere and anywhere at your leisure. And as much as we all love the baby float, we would like you to take all the 4 baby floats and make them, baby bombs.
It's pretty wild. I mean, if he keeps this up, which I think he's going to, in terms of the scoring, he's going to be Miami's first scorer to average more than 23 points since LeBron in 2014.
Yeah.
And 23 points is not a high bar in today's NBA. We're talking there's teams that have multiple players scoring 23 points per game for a season.
I think it's completely fair to say that he's been the best player this year.
Okay, Tyler Herro as the best player on your team. Is this something that should excite Miami Heat fans or scare them a little bit, Matt?
I mean, I think it's something for them to take as a sign. They need to blow it up. Trade everyone. That's it. We're done. Tyler Herro is your best player. You're done. It's over. Despite him scoring like this, they're losing his minutes. They're losing in his minutes. And that's a lot of the roster and all these types of things, but it also shows you Tyler's not lifting anybody up with this. He's just getting buckets. And when you watch, it's kind of that. Without him, they're getting killed. And I don't deny that. He has been their best player this season. You know who that's an indictment on? Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, who should be far better players than him. And they are in a bind here, Hayes. If I'm watching Tyler Herro do this, my initial instinct is trade him now, because surely someone will fall for this. Go trade Tyler Herro right now.
I can understand that mindset as far as trading right now where the value is high and taking advantage of that. But then it's like, again, what do the Heat want to do? Because if they're not willing to actually go younger with their roster, then maybe there is the best case for trading Tyler Herro now while he's hot. I do think what he's doing is sustainable. I think Tyler Herro has shown that ability and has grown year after year. It's a little weird that he's your number one offensive player. And like you said, I just don't think that leads to you winning anything meaningful. It's a great story to have. It's somebody that you've developed on that roster. But Miami Heat have to ask themselves a tough question of really, where do they stand in the East? Where do they want to go? And how can they get there? Can you get there by trading a young player like Tyler Herro or get a step closer? Do you need to go ahead and move Jimmy? But it just seems like Pat Riley is just right now content with just letting things play out. And that's a little surprising for me from Pat Riley. I would just think he'd be a little bit more aggressive than what we've seen from him in the last couple of years.
Surprising to you, Matt?
I mean, I think that the lesson here is that if he's going to trade Tyler, he can trade him for young prospects. Like, you could make a move and maybe deal him somewhere and get younger players. Like, if you're looking at Tyler and it's like, oh, he's scoring a lot, do you want to trade him for Zach LaVine, who's scoring a lot? Like, it doesn't really move you up or down. Like, it just doesn't. I like Zach a lot, and I think he's better than Tyler. But that doesn't move you up or down, right? They want to trade for someone like Giannis, which is not going to happen. They want to trade for him for someone, a Donovan Mitchell, which isn't going to happen. Like, that's what they want to aim for. That's what Pat Riley's waiting for, is he doesn't want to settle for anything less than a megastar. And I don't think that he's cognizant of how that's not happening. He's got to go get another Dwayne Wade. That's what he's got to do as his final kind of act in his great legacy as the head of Miami Heat basketball.
Okay, let's move on to a little panic or press on. You've got two teams, the Indiana Pacers and Sacramento Kings, that had high hopes that with a healthy roster full of familiar players, they could keep momentum in their respective conferences, but that's not happened for either team. Let's play panic or press on, and we start with the Locked On Pacers podcast for some insight into Indiana's woes.
It's gotten to a weird point, right? Because I kind of feel like with how injured they were and how difficult their first 13 games were, it was pretty easy to kind of say, well, if this changes or that changes or whatever for a while. Everyone said, well, they could turn a corner, right? Like, there were a lot of reasonable reasons to think it could happen. And now with this 4-game losing streak, winning only 3 of their last 10, and all 3 of those wins extremely uninspiring, and a lot of those losses of the blowout variety, there's the question everybody's asking is what you tweeted last night. Do they just kind of stink? And if that answer is yes, how do they stop?
Okay, Hayes, panic or press on the Indiana Pacers at this point?
Panic. Like, hit the panic button. I'm sorry. I had hope that the Pacers are going to be able to turn this thing around, but it just does not seem like, for some reason, this team is just getting in rhythm. And I understand why a lot of the blame has fallen on Tyrese Halliburton. He has just not played up to the level that people have come accustomed to looking and viewing him as, but it just seems like there's more than that. Pascal's having a solid season. Ben Mathu's having a solid season statistically. This is just not working right now for the Indiana Pacers, and it does seem like something has to give at some point. I just don't know if the Pacers are going to be ready to make and pull the trigger on anything this season. They may very well wait this out and see where it goes at the end of the season, but it's definitely time to panic in Indiana, if you ask me.
I agree. The answer here, I think, is that Rick Carlisle's going to panic a little bit and change his approach. Carlisle's been, bugging them to play a little bit of defense. And what coaches like Carlisle tend to do is they assume the offense is going to be good because you have enough talent. When Tyrese Halliburton's on the floor this season, they have a 112 offensive rating. It ranks amongst all teams for full games 17th, tied with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Wow. You cannot have your offense be the average of the Wolves when Tyrese Halliburton is on the floor. You're never going to win games that way. Pascal Siakam's been phenomenal. He's brought the right approach. Nobody else has. And they need to lean into their offensive identity. Trying to play balanced basketball simply hasn't worked. You want to reshape the roster to be more defensive minded? All right, you can do that. Do that in the offseason. For this year, you need to fix the problems now because you're sliding too far out, even in the East, for you to make a run. They've got to get back to playing Pacers basketball, which means all offense, no defense.
All right, coming up, we're going to get to the Sacramento Kings. Should they panic or press on? And our favorite things of the week, and maybe some crazy NBA rule changes. We'll talk about that and more on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, America's #1 sports book is offering new customers $150 in bonus bets if you bet $5 and win. So get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. Convenience, it's the name of the game. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Okay, let's continue our game of panic or press on with the Sacramento Kings, where Locked On Kings host Matt George says the Kings are losing more than just games this season.
They've lost their identity. They don't know what their identity is. And what their identity is supposed to be, based off of this roster and the perceived strengths of this roster, is a versatile, high-paced, potentially devastating offense that has the capability to beat you on all three levels, that is dynamic in the clutch, and that it can explode at any given time. That is what the identity of this Kings team is supposed to be. And it has been that at times, but the problem is consistency. This offense isn't consistent enough to be considered a strength. And if the offense for this Kings team isn't a strength, then the Sacramento Kings are not a good basketball team. In fact,
all right, so Sacramento Kings, panic or press on, Matt?
I think they just press on. There's some promising signs. Their half-court defense is a dumpster fire. They're 4th worst in the league, and they got to get that fixed. But I wouldn't expect a lot from it. The half-court offense is really good. They've had some inconsistency in transition. So if we kind of like diagnose this and trying to slice it down, they're okay. Like, they're probably okay. They're not, I don't think they're as bad as their record. They play a really tough one because they're in the West. This was how it was going to be. Now, for me, it's just like, hey, you might be able to improve regular season, but Hayes, I'll just say you needed to do a lot right out of the gate to try and talk me into the idea they were going to make any noise in the playoffs. Like, it was going to take months of great basketball to convince me this team can make a run in the playoffs. I don't think they can. The bigger problem here for me is if this is a disappointing season, De'Aaron Fox may not be there next year. And now we're talking about massive changes for the Kings. There's a lot of pressure on them right now and in this season.
The problem with that clip is that everything he said that the Kings are supposed to be is anti what DeMar DeRozan brings in the anti-environment that he thrives in.
Great
you
point.
have to slow it down and play with DeMar DeRozan. He's not good in transition. Half-court defense, he gets blown up. And you know, he does some things like get steals, which is a benefit of DeMar DeRozan. But, like, it's just one of the negatives of playing with DeMar DeRozan. Like, you have to play in such a particular way. He's going to slow things down. He's going to pound the ball out. And that's why the half-court offense probably looks so good, is that's where DeMar DeRozan thrives at. But if you want to be this fast-paced team, that's just not going to happen in DeMar DeRozan's minutes on your team. So it's just not. That's just limitation of who DeMar DeRozan is. Now, he's one of the best scorers in NBA history. You cannot take that away from him, what he's been able to do with mainly just scoring 2-pointers and getting to the free throw line, but it's just a limitation. And that's what this is saying to me. It's like there's always an adjustment period that you have to do when you incorporate DeMar DeRozan to it. Can they overcome it? Maybe as the season goes on, but everything that we're hearing right now, it just sounds like this is the DeMar DeRozan hump that you have to get over, and maybe they can find their way.
Yeah, to Hayes' point, just looked it up, and the Kings are averaging 99 possessions with DeRozan on the floor per 100. And then you look at it and it's a 101 with him off the floor. Like, they can't play Kings basketball with DeMar DeRozan, which is why when they made this trade, all of us were like, hey, you got DeMar. Like, he's really good. How does this work exactly? It's a great point by Hayes.
All right, so a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty for those two teams, but I want to end the weekend on something a little wild and crazy. And Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred certainly made waves, and some are calling him crazy, when he said that his league was considering a radical rule change called the Golden Bat Rule that would allow teams to insert a batter of their choice for one at-bat at any point in the game, which made me curious about what radical rule changes that Matt and Hayes would like to see in the NBA. Matt, what you got for me?
All right. So for one possession per game, you get to change the scoring parameters. So for one possession, If you're down 4, you get to declare this possession. If we score from wherever on the floor, it's 4 points. If you foul us, it's 4 points automatically. No more fouling up 3. No more of these. It's only a 4 max. So if you're down 3, you can declare 4 and win the game if you can make a bucket. If you foul, you win the game. Got to make the free throw if it's a winning point. So this is the idea: is one possession, you get to alter what the scoring parameters are for the possession. Only one.
What do you think about that, Hayes?
That would be super entertaining to watch. I would love to see how the NBA would implement it. That would bring up entertainment levels so much. That would be crazy, honestly.
I think it would have to come with something negative. Like, you could do that, but if you miss the shot or you miss the free throw, it actually puts you in a deeper hole.
All right, we're gonna do a -1. We'll do a -1, right? Because you're only gonna use it. You're only gonna use it if it's, and especially like, think of the aggressive ones where it's like, all right, there's 35 seconds left and you have a 3-point lead, and you're declaring, hey, on this one it's a 4. But if you miss, it's a -1 now. Now it's a 2-point game.
It really would make the possessions leading up to the final possession crazy, because you'd have teams trying to go like 3 or 4 for 1, trying to get to that last possession. I like it. I do. All right, Hayes, what's your crazy rule change?
Extend the 3-point line now. Extend the 3-point line. Provide a little bit more space and make the 3-pointer a little bit more difficult. These guys are already hitting 3-pointers at a ridiculous rate consistently. Extend the 3-point line out and see if that changes the game at all. That's the one I could come up with.
And are you in favor of the one that gets brought up a lot, like closing off the short corner? So you're like bringing it out, but you're also like taking the 3-point corner shot away completely.
Yes.
I don't want the corner gone. I like the corner 3. Those are high quality looks, and I want those retained. And it's honestly like, the ones that bug me are not usually, if you're creating a corner 3, it's off of really good action. Like, you've made smart passes to set up that high quality shot, because it's like, that's the closest 3-pointer to make. It's also the closest 3-pointer to close out on. The ones that bug me are like it's the Celtics shots. It's like, you whip the ball around 3 times and you take it above the break 3 and you make it. Like, those are the ones I think that they want to tamp down on. It would be really interesting to see how Boston would adjust in particular to that kind of thing, and like what Daryl Morey or somebody would come up with in regards to like how that spacing would work out. I think it's an interesting idea.
So Hayes wants to close off the corner 3. I think, Matt, if I'm envisioning your line, it would be the corner 3 is retained, but then the line sort of divides itself like the Red Sea parting at the above the break point, going all the way to the half-court line.
Right, exactly.
It's an interesting shape. I have one. I think they should, instead of doing like a 5-minute overtime that ends up with just a couple of baskets, I think they should go to soccer like type of where it's just one-on-one. It's like penalty shots, just one-on-one basketball. Maybe you pick 5 players each, and you go one-on-one with each other. You could maybe pick one defender to defend everything, or perhaps maybe you get like a big and a small defender that gets to defend everything, much like the goalie in soccer. That would be my radical rule change, because I think OT, and particularly when we get into double overtime and triple overtime, I think it can be exciting, but oftentimes guys are, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's very entertaining to me.
Make them choose. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Is make them choose between the two, because then it's like, yeah, we don't have faith in the rest of you guys. I only have faith in this guy. I want that kind of decision making out there versus the teams that are like, no, we can beat you 5-on-5. We're good. That's what I'm saying.
Let us know what your radical rule changes are for the NBA on our YouTube page. Make sure you're subscribed there. You're liking the videos. Really quickly, favorite things of the week. Hayes, we'll start with you. What did you see this week that you really loved?
My birthday. The Bulls got to win. That's we got to win on my birthday. I would assume we got his first triple-double. I know. Wow. I always come into this saying that I want to give something objective for the best of the week, but no, I can't. It was my birthday, and my team got to win. That was my favorite thing of the week.
It's your space. Vooch, also 39. Was this was this a little showcase for some of these trade pieces, you think?
Could very well be. Maybe playing his way out of Chicago.
Matt, what was your favorite thing of the week?
Christian Brown diving across the floor, suicide play to suicide dive to get the ball and secure the win for the Nuggets, and the officials missing a very blatant attempt by him to call a timeout And him saying post game, no, I mean, my hands were moving. Your hands are always moving. Who knows how hands move? And while Steve Kerr lost his mind at the officiating, just a very entertaining night in Denver with that game. The other thing is seeing Kevin Durant back, even though it was only for a few games. He went back out again with an ankle injury, but it was really good to see KD back and cooking again. If that Suns team can just get healthy, I really think that they've got a shot at winning the West.
I want to have a longer conversation about the relationship between coaches, players, and officiating because, like, they've never loved each other, but I feel like particularly in this first part of the season, it has gotten, I don't know if toxic's the word, but it seems tensions are higher than I remember them in previous seasons. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but it could be worthy of a deeper conversation.
I love it.
Favorite thing of the week for me, I just saw Giannis say that he essentially really, really wants to win MVP, that it would be special for him. And I love when guys are vulnerable and open up and say, yeah, I would love to win that award. I think too often players feel like they've got to just sort of default to humility or like, I don't care about that stuff. So I love that from Giannis. But my actual favorite thing of the week was in the game between New York and Charlotte. Karl Anthony Towns got a little blood on his jersey and in particular on his shorts. And instead of checking himself out of the game and getting that taken care of, he ran over to the bench and put an extra pair of shorts on. Didn't change shorts, but he had 2 pairs of shorts on for the final part of the game. A game in which, by the way, you had Mikal Bridges playing 40-plus minutes. You had Karl Anthony Towns playing, I think, 39 minutes, and Jalen Brunson playing 38 minutes in a game they won by more than 20 and they had complete control over. Tibbs is a psychopath. There's no other. Why would you do that in December? I don't know.
Total psycho.
All right. Thanks for watching this edition or listening to this edition of Locked On NBA. If you liked it, subscribe to Locked On NBA, like the video on YouTube, tell a friend, and wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Enjoy tonight's action. Enjoy this weekend's action. Be kind to each other, and we will see you right back here on Mondays, Locked On NBA.